Hi, I'm Amber McMillan with the Dallas Baptist Association VBS Team, and this conference is called No Fear in Love, and it's over about how to love those children that God blesses us with, no matter who that child is, because we all have those wonderful gifts from God, because we know that God blessed us with so many children, whether they are quiet and meek, or they are loud and rambunctious, or they just can't sit still, or they are a special gift with Down syndrome, or they have a learning disability. We love each and every gift because we know that God knit every single one of us in the womb, and we know that those sweet, precious babies are here for a reason. And we know also that God put those children into your class for such a time as this. And so what we have is for our concrete and cranes especially, we have a toolbox that we need to unpack so that we can love on those sweet, precious gifts that we are given every single week, each day for Vacation Bible School, but also each week for Sunday School if you teach Sunday School. So I want to start, first of all, with a quote from the wonderful Charles Spurgeon. It's from his book, Come Ye Children. It says, "Help for teaching children about Jesus." So this is the book right here, and it's a wonderful book. It's not very long. It's a very quick read, and if you have a chance to read it, I highly recommend it. It says, "We are specifically exhorted to feed them, the children, because they are so likely to be overlooked. I am afraid our sermons often go over the heads of the younger folks, who, nevertheless, may be as true Christians as the older ones. Blessed is he who speaks as to be understood by a child. Blessed is that godly woman who in her class so adapts herself to girlish modes of thought that the truth from her heart streams into the children's hearts without let or hindrances." That's the thing. Each and every single one of you who teaches Vacation Bible School, you have a gift, and you are using that gift every single day of VBS. But you're also using that gift every single day when you teach Sunday School, or you teach Wednesday night activities or Sunday evening activities, or if you're a sweet teacher in our wonderful school districts, thank you for doing it. Regardless of how you serve our children, you are shepherding our sweet sheep, and we appreciate it. Matthew 22, 37 through 38 says, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment." And by loving the Lord, we love those babies, those sweet, precious babies that we have. And when we do that, we're showing how that greatest commandment. And another one of my favorite books is called Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline. And as you can see, this book is quite well worn because I have two sweet babies at my house that are like this. This is by Becky A. Bailey. This is a great book to use for personal use. It's the 7 basic skills for turning conflict into cooperation. It's not just a good book for home, but it's also a good book for using in your classroom if you have a chance to read it. But one of the quotes that she has is, "The school-age child must learn about rules and the consequences of breaking them. She must test her own ideas and values and see that she can disagree with others and still be loved. School-age children grow in their ability to cooperate during the same years in which they contrast their abilities with those of others. They grapple with the concept of responsibility and strengthen their internal control mechanisms." So children are doing the things that they do, whether it's lashing out, whether it's testing the waters, because they're wanting to see what they can do. They want to see what boundaries that they can push, but they also want to see what the social norms are. And because sometimes they aren't given social norms, and because sometimes those sweet babies only come to church once a year. Sometimes they're dropped off at your Vacation Bible School because their mom feels like they need a break, and that's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But we also need to let them know that there is a way that we behave, and but these sweet kids are testing those boundaries, and they need to be shown love. And so we know that Sometimes children can be very unlovable, but we know that we are called to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the greatest of all the commandments. And that you love others also. And so that's what we're supposed to be doing, is loving others. So, each child is a blessing, even that kid. And you all know who that kid is. And we're just going to go through quickly who that kid is. Some children sit in the corner of the class and never participate. Some children who spin around and around right in the middle of the circle during Bible time. Children who talk the entire time. That was actually me. The children who lays their head down and doesn't participate. The child who uses colorful language during scripture memory. The girl who can't control her arms and touches all the children around her. It's actually my daughter. The child who has ADHD and crawls under the tables, over the tables, through the line, and around the room and can't stop moving. The twins who don't talk to anyone but themselves. The girl who must finish every project and won't move on unless that project is complete. The child who says they don't participate in group activities and only likes to work alone. The child who hits, kicks, bites, and tells you they hate you. The child who arrives and doesn't know anyone and latches onto your leg. So these are some of the pitfalls that occur every summer at Vacation Bible School. Let's love on each and every single blessing from the Lord. So I'm going to go through and we're going to tackle these and some more of the sweet blessings that we have each year in Vacation Bible School. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with prayer. So it seems easy enough. So bathing Vacation Bible School, the children, their families, our churches, fellow teachers, and other churches in prayer will make a difference. God promises to hear our prayers. God promises to answer our prayers. God will deliver us, and God is gracious and a mighty God. No matter what, God is in control. And we know that, especially in this time as such as this, we know that God is our firm foundation. With concrete and cranes, that's our whole goal. Jesus, our firm foundation. We know that he's in control. And so when we pray, we know that God's in control. We also know that when we're doing God's work, the evil one is hard at work too, because he doesn't attack us where we're weak. He tries to attack us in just where he attacks us where we're strong, where we're kind of strong, and also where we're weak. And so he's going to find ways to get to us, whether it's through patience, whether it's through our health, whether it's through our time management, wherever we're at, he's going to attack us. And so please be in prayer, making sure that you are armed and you have on the full armor of God, and that you know that Jesus is your firm foundation. The next thing is to be prepared. So it seems weird. Well, of course you're going to be prepared, but always know that you need to start now preparing for the summer. So if you fail to plan, then plan to fail. The children can smell the weak, and the weak are those that don't plan. Trust me, they can smell it. If you walk in and you're not standing right at the door, they know. And if you're not the one in control, they will take control. I'm not kidding. I've seen it happen. So they can always smell an unprepared teacher. They're like sharks on chum. They know. So know the material to the point it's memorized. It doesn't mean that it has to be memorized, but it needs to be that you can see exactly what you need to do, and you've gone over those Bible truths over and over again, that you have them down. Also, be comfortable. Don't be like a deer in headlights that you're like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Just be comfortable. It's okay. They don't know that you're not comfortable. Just act like you're comfortable, but be comfortable. It's okay. They're just children. Most of them are probably shorter than you. I know there's some that are going to be taller than you, but it's okay. And don't forget, pray, and pray some more. Set expectations. Set your expectations, otherwise known as classroom rules. I don't call them classroom rules because that turns kids thinking that it's school. So make them simple. Go over them every day. First thing you do with the kids is go over those classroom. Make it a routine. Tell them why you have those expectations. Make sure you aren't too hard and fast though with them, or you can turn into a dictator. That's not as much fun. And praise the children who are meeting expectations, and look for times when each child is meeting the expectations. This is my personal expectation chart that I use for Vacation Bible School. And it says no talking when an adult is talking. Something may be missed. So it's pretty simple. So when I'm teaching a lesson, I expect the children not to talk. And that's because I don't want them to miss something. Please raise your hand. This lets the teacher know you would like to tell them something. It's pretty simple. Why I want them to know. Treat others how you would like to be treated. Kindness and respect. I remind them that if you want somebody to pinch, poke, and kick and bite on you, then that's the way you need to be treated. But that's not how we do it in our classroom. Everyone is loved by God. No exceptions. God hates sin, but loves us. So they also need to remember that we're always going to be learning about how we are sinners, but God loves us, and Jesus died on the cross to forgive us of our sins. Hands, feet, and other body parts stay to ourselves. No touchy-touchy. No touchy-touchy. All right? It's perfect. Especially right now, we're supposed to stay 6 feet apart. No touchy-touchy. But we also need to remind those sweet kiddos that have a tendency to have the love language touch that they need to not be all huggy all over everybody, because not everybody has that love language, or not everybody likes to be all touchy. So set those expectations, but also remember that if the time where they are supposed to be doing something where they're supposed to be yelling out an answer all at one time, and there's always going to be that rule follower, because there's always a rule follower, that when it's no talking when an adult is talking and everyone's yelling out answers, make sure that you let them know this is what we're doing. And so by day 2, the no touchy, the kids are going to do the same hand movement too. If you go, no touchy, because for Wednesday nights, I teach chimes at my church, and I tell them that they can't touch the bell tables because they're fragile and they're Italian, and that always gets a kick out of the kids all the time. So the same thing is they're fragile every week. We go over the same expectations, and they always say, Miss Amber, why do we do this? I was like, because y'all remember the rules too, or the expectations, and they do. The next thing is to use visuals within reason. So use a visual schedule on the wall. So I myself tend to get a little wrapped up in the stories. And so if there is a visual schedule with time and pictures, it helps everyone, adults and students, to understand where we're going next. So we have our sweet children with learning disabilities, whether it's autism or Down syndrome, who don't understand that next we're going to be going to rec or crafts or music, or our next activity is we're going to be going to a table activity. But if they can see it on the board, or if they're nonverbal and they can point to it, it's a great way to show them what to do. But also with time, if you've got a clock, that it lets the kids know there's a time that we have to keep. And if it's big and it's on the wall where they can see it, maybe close to the door, let them know that we do have to keep to a schedule, because that's what so that we can keep everybody in VBS on a schedule. But also remember that kids can get overstimulated with lots of stuff. So we have children who have sensory issues, whether it be touch or sound or taste, or even visually overstimulated. Those children, if they see the walls are over-decorated with so many things, you may think as an adult, it's wonderful, it's great. But those kids are never going to pay attention to what you're saying because they are so busy looking at every single detail on the wall. And you're never going to hook them into what you're talking about because they are going to be inspecting that wall all the time. My own child had a test that he took this past summer as entering third grade. That was a 3-hour math test. And I was really concerned about him because he has ADHD. Even though he took his meds, I was really concerned that he was not going to be able to focus for that whole entire 3 hours. Well, when I picked him up after taking that test, it took him 2 hours to take the test. And I said, "How did you do on the test?" And he said, "I think I did pretty good." And I said, "Well, was it easy to focus?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because there was nothing on the walls." Well, my ADHD kid cannot stand at school that every single inch of the walls in his classroom are covered with stuff because he gets distracted. So even his bedroom at home doesn't have a lot of stuff because he can't do his homework because everything is covered in stuff. So be mindful when you're decorating a room that those kids that can't handle that visual stimulation because it's just going to be too much. Same thing with loud noises. You may have a child that comes in with the earmuffs, with the soundproof headphones, because things are going to be overstimulating and they're going to get upset. Make sure that you're sensitive to those kids because they're going to get upset, which can cause other children to get upset. And it's not their fault. They just have oversensitive ears. So just be mindful of things whenever you're decorating, of who is in your classroom. And you may not know that until after the first day, but you can be careful when you're decorating to be mindful. Most of us, it's a lot. The next thing is to assist kids. Assist kids, don't force kids. Just like I was saying, there's that kid that's going to sit in the corner and not do anything. They're probably not going to do anything until you hook them. So making a stubborn child do something they don't want to do will just make them more stubborn. So you forcing them to do it is just going to dig their heels even more. Another one of my favorite books is by a wonderful author, Cynthia Tobias. She is amazing. And this is called You Can't Make Me, But I Can Be Persuaded. This is an amazing book, which I highly recommend any book written by her, because she also writes another book that I love. It's called The Way They Learn, which is all about learning styles in children in the classroom or at home. It helps you to understand. But make children comfortable to ask for help, but encourage them to do the work and empower children to do the work. You may need to remind them that this isn't schoolwork, but make it fun and make it something that they want to do. But also remember that Vacation Bible School is about learning about Jesus, and that sometimes it can be a little bit challenging or a little bit not all bells and whistles. And so sometimes they just may want to sit in the corner and be stubborn, but that doesn't mean that they're not listening. So when we have our sweet babies that are sweet and loving and sometimes a challenge, remember to talk to the parents, but remember also to be sensitive. So if your roll sheet gives you a heads up about a learning disability or a behavior disorder, make sure to contact those parents ahead of time. Those parents are going to love that you're reaching out ahead of time and that you want to find out the best way that their child can enjoy their VBS experience. They're going to love that you are thinking ahead. They're also going to love that that they have a teacher that really cares about their child. Ask the parent the best way to help their child have the best experience in VBS, not saying, "So, what can we do about your child?" Say, "How can I make their experience the best?" Be aware that the parent knows that their child has issues. They want their child to enjoy their time. Parents who have children who have a behavior issue or a learning disability, they know that their child may be a challenge. They're not immune to it. But please remember to be sensitive when you say something to them. It's not fun to get a phone call every week from your child's teacher or every other day, and so it is disheartening. And so be sensitive. That doesn't mean that you don't contact the parents, but it also means do it in a way that's loving, and also do it in a way that is constructive, that you really do want to help these children, because the goal is to let them learn about Jesus. And also remember, do not speak in front of other parents. It can be embarrassing, but also it's none of anyone else's business. That's between you and the parent, not in front of the other gabby gabbers. And be kind and don't be accusatory. That child sometimes can't control their behavior. Sometimes they can, but a lot of times they can't. And so find out if it really is an issue, or if the child has something going on, because there could be a death in the family, there could be a move, there can be a lot of things going on, especially right now where we've got these uncertain times with the virus and people being shelter in place. Kids have been cooped up a lot, and they're going to be really hyper. So, also remember, don't surprise children. Is the next thing. Give time checks. So 5 minutes to clean up, till cleanup, 2 minutes till we clean up. Okay, time to clean up. So one of the things that I love to use is a visual timer. So I have these sand timers, and they are in increments of 1 minute, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes. And so I use these in the classroom because I want the kids to be able to see visually where they're at. I also still give them time checks, but if I have something that is visual, not just a clock, they can actually see with the sand where they're at, because you've got those kids, they're just going to procrastinate, but you've also got those perfectionists that they have to finish the project. And if they don't, that causes anxiety, and they get very anxious. So please give visuals, give time checks, because if you surprise them and say, all right, it's time to go to the next thing, all of a sudden you've got kids groaning and they're upset, and then you've got to then transition all of a sudden. And it's not good for them, and it's also not good for you. So when it comes to activities, I have what I'm calling the Amber's bell curve on the classroom. So wiggle activities are fantastic because they get the kids to move and some movement out of their system to keep them focused on the activity. But sometimes that can be a detriment if you're doing a high energy activity and then all of a sudden you want them to sit down and settle, especially for those kids who are movers and shakers and they just want to move. So you take them from a high energy activity to no energy activity. So if you'll follow a high energy activity to a medium activity, then move to your lower energy activity, it gradually gets them prepared to transition to being ready for that low energy. So when looking through the curriculum, if you'll look and go, okay, this is a low energy, this is a high energy, this is a medium energy, and transition, and so you can go pick and choose in the order that you want to do those throughout your class. It's really just a theory, but the thought is that if you can go from high energy, medium, and then get down to that sitting, you've got those wigglers who have gone from high energy, woo, then medium, and they understand that now it's that, okay, we're starting to work our way down to we can now sit and we can work on what we need to do, and then we can go back to a higher energy activity. And so it's kind of that bell curve. Children need buddies. Special needs children who are integrated into the classroom will probably need a buddy that stays with them the entire time. A buddy may also be needed for a child with ADHD who just needs extra help, maybe for a rotation or a portion of class. Youth make great buddies, especially the 14, 15-year-old girls who, especially if they say that they want to be a teacher when they grow up, that is a great place for buddies, for them to be buddies. But buddies also need to be given clear guidelines and expectations. So they can't just be thrown with a kid and told this is what you need to do. Tell them, this is what I need you to do. They need to stay exactly with that buddy. Their job is not to help with other things. Their job is to stay with that child, because that child needs extra help, especially those with Down syndrome or with autism. They need to be helping with that child. Then sometimes children just can't help it. So if a child needs to walk around the room and they're not bothering anyone, let them walk around the room. Just let them walk around the back side of the room. There's nothing wrong with that. Just let them roam. If they're not causing a problem, let them go. It doesn't mean they're not listening. It means they just need to get up and move. In our school system, we have IEPs and 504s, which are a set of things that they can use in the classroom. Well, sometimes a 504 IEP, a learning that they can use, a thing that they can use in their classroom, says that they can actually get up and walk around, or they can move their seat, or a different kind of seating, or they can use a special pencil. Be aware that that child may be allowed to get up and walk around, and that's normal for them. So if a child is in the back of the room pacing or walking around, ask them if they need some help. And if they say, no, I'm okay, just let them walk. If they're not bothering anyone, don't draw attention to them, just let them walk. If a child has problems keeping their hands to themselves, get them a fidget toy. So I made these fidget toys that have to do with our concrete and cranes. One of them is a nut and bolt. So I glued a nut to the end of the bolt, and then I have another nut. So this is really just something that you just tell the child that they have to screw the nut all the way down one end of the bolt and then to the other end of the bolt. So it goes along with the theme. It also keeps their little hands busy. So maybe it's that child that keeps putting their hands all over their neighbor. They're not going to be keeping it on their neighbor whenever they're playing with this. And you can do it in multiple sizes. And all of this cost me about $3 from the Home Depot. So you just glue one nut on the end, and depending on the dexterity of a child, it's going to take them a while, or it's going to take them no time at all, but it'll keep them busy. There are other things to keep them busy. I had my 9-year-old can sit and watch this thing over and over again. So there are things that can keep them busy, or things that you can buy that are just fidgety little things that don't bother anyone, but they keep the hands busy. Also, Theraputty or putty that can be purchased at Walmart or Amazon. All of those places are great for these ones I got at Walmart in the toy section. So if a child has problems with activities because it's too hard, make a modifier. So a child with a learning disability may need the activity to be modified. So which means you may need to find an extra activity that's maybe simpler, or you may just need to simplify the other activity. If a child is hitting, biting, kicking, talk to the child. Use feeling words, but don't leave the classroom. So timeout is not a place for children during church. They need to be a part of God's love. So don't separate the children into a corner, or don't single them out by setting them in a different chair. Put them with a buddy or with an adult sitting with the group, but you can talk to them and ask them, what can I do to help you? How are you feeling? This book right here by Jack Klumpenhauer is called Show Them Jesus. Teaching the Gospel to Kids is a really great book. It really does talk a lot about showing Jesus to children in classrooms and also in home, that I would recommend with dealing with children like that. Another one of the books that is good is by Frank Bowers. It's called Great Days Ahead, Parenting Children Who Have ADHD with Hope and Confidence. This is another great book. Obviously, I've marked it because there are places that I go back to time and time again that I've used a lot. Because hitting, kicking, all of those things are common, especially when children are dealing with something like tragedy. They're dealing with something like emotional distress. And right now, we're in a time where children are in emotional distress. They may not always show it, but it's going to come out in one way or the other, whether it's yelling, whether it's turning in on themselves, whether it's actually poor performance in their schoolwork, even at home. Children are going to, they bounce back really well, but some kids don't bounce back as well. And so we need to love on these children. And again, remind them that Jesus is our strong foundation. If a child won't join, make the experience so amazing they can't help but want to be a part of the group. If the child is by themselves because for one reason or another, they're at a table and they just want to be alone, let them continue to be alone. Still a part of the group, you have to say you have to come over here and sit, but you can be alone away from, but you still have to be a part of the group alone. But make them, engage them in the experience so that they want to be a part of it. If a child is constantly pushing your buttons, sit with them. I know it seems kind of counterintuitive, but there's always those kids that just push buttons. Make sure to learn their names. And that's a way of also, because a lot of times kids get in trouble because they want to hear their name called. And it seems silly, but that's just what they do. They want to hear their name called. So learn that child's name. Learn what gets to know that kid to tick, and just love on that baby even more. So if a child uses very bad words and tells you they hate you, and yes, I've had that happen to me before at church, tell them that Jesus loves them and so do you. So and invite them to join the activity. Sometimes it's going to happen, and they're going to fight you tooth to nail. Again, there are kids that they have got things going on in their lives. They've got hard times at home. They've got hard times internally, and our job is to love on them. You need to make sure that the other kids in the class are safe. You need to make sure that that child is safe. There is a point where you need to call mom, and if that child is hindering to the point where you need to call mom, do that. Now, if another child has been hurt, like bitten or kicked and hit, please let your children's minister know, because the parent does need to be contacted. That does need to be resolved, but you still need to love on that child. There are, no matter what, children need to be loved on. Also remember that your reaction to a situation is the best way to diffuse or infuse a situation. So remember that you're the adult. So pray over the entire situation before VBS begins, and God keeps his promises to take control. So we're the adults. We have to react in the best way possible. Some of us have short fuses, some of us have longer fuses. And some of us are sticklers to the rules. Some of us are more lax to the rules. You set the precedent in your class. So the children are going to feed off of that. So depending on how you act in the class and how you react to situations is how the children are going to act and react. So that is how you need to make sure that what you do. I've had lots of children through my years in children's ministry, all sorts of kids from all sorts of backgrounds. And I've been hit at, kicked at, punched at, bitten, told that they hate me, all the curse words. And so it's all about how I react to the situation. And I still keep coming back because I love those sweet, sweet kiddos. And so one of the things that we can do is making sure that our classroom is also conducive to the kids. And so some of the things that I love to use, again, are just things that kids can go to, that making sure that they have something that if they need to just have a break, or they're in the middle of an activity that maybe they're struggling with. And one of these is I love getting water bottles and filling them back with water and glitter. And these are the loom bands. And you just fill it with water and glitter and loom bands, and kids can just watch it fall up and down. Super simple. These are different kinds of I Spies, and these are fun early arriver activities for kids to keep them occupied before the rest of the kids. And they're different. This one has birdseed, and this one has the Orbeez. There are buttons in here, and they have to find the different buttons. And so they have to turn it and spin it and see which buttons they can find. And a big thing of Orbeez, which fills a lot, you can either get at Walmart or at Amazon. Another thing that kids love, which is a sensory thing, which especially children with autism love, is the kinetic sand, which is great. Also, another thing is the Orbeez, just in a making sure when you do these, make sure you have adult supervision. And like I said, TheraPutty, some kind of putty, is always great for having in your classroom. And then glitter glue in a jar of water, in a water bottle full of water, also very calming. These I use actually with my own children to keep them calm. They have to actually sit there, and until everything comes down, they cannot move. They have to sit there. It actually helps calm them down from having problems. So I hope that this has been informative to you. I hope that you can take what I've given you to use it in your own classroom. Remember to love on those sweet kiddos in Vacation Bible School and Sunday School. Remember that each and every single child is a precious gift from God.